name is Adeline.
My name is Bane.
And you're listening to
the Salty Girls Podcast. This is just a space where we talk about our personal journey.
We'll be unpacking a whole lot of trauma,
sharing about our mental health,
our physical health,
some life lessons that we've learned.
And we'll invite a couple of people along the way to share their life lessons too.
So basically, we're just going to be real, we're going to be vulnerable.
But the essence of all of this and the reason behind it is God's calling over our lives.
So we hope you enjoy, we hope you were encouraged.
We hope you take something out of this. We hope this brings healing. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 1 of the Salty Girls Podcast.
In this episode, we're going to unpack Matthew 5:13, which says...
Matthew 5:13 says, "You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men."
I'm just going to read the tongue on one now because I memorized it for my Foitali September. Matthew vahenima vestahatolu. Koki mo tolu koe masima o fonua. Peka mole me he masima anu kona. E whaka masima e masima e ha. O I kai toi aonga ki hamnea ka ke laku pe ki tua ki moloa e kakai. Man, that is like some heavy instructions.
It is.
So we want to unpack what it means to us to be salt of the earth. So what's your first, what comes to you when it says you are the salt of the earth?
Well, salt, so immediately you think of preserving, right? And so you can use salt to preserve a lot of different things. And we've been talking about how way back when there were no fridges available and we had fish and all sorts of different things. And they would use salt to actually preserve these things because of the technology available at the time. So then that just comes down to what do we look like as people on this earth, and what are we preserving? And I think that we're preserving each other and through our prayers. And we've had conversations before about we can't believe where we're at right now, the things that we've gone through, so many crazy things, yet we're still alive, and we know that that's because of the prayers of our grandmothers, our mothers, our fathers, our grandfathers as well. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for the prayers of those before us, or those who are within our circle and know us. It shouldn't be taken lightly. So I feel that we have this responsibility that Matthew 5:13 talks about to be that prayer warrior in your family or in your friends' lives, because you don't know who you're preserving.
And just not just being, but also because I think that is it for us. Whenever we go through stuff, it's like, "Oi, pray for me."
And we don't go into detail. It's just pray for me.
I think for me also, koe masima, koe mea whakatolonga foki. So what I kind of want is the presence of God to be preserved in this earth. Because I know if He's not there, bruh, we're
done.
We're done. So, and then I like that when you were talking about whakatolonga koe, I would think, if they didn't have masima, then it would go bad. So, world is gonna go get worse and worse because it's already bad. But with the presence of God, it makes a difference. Especially because when I feel like I'm in the midst of the presence of God, I just feel loved and I feel like I belong. So I just want to pray for that presence, not only for myself but for the people around me, and just in the space, the area that I'm in. If I'm walking into a building, I'm like, "Oh God, let Your presence be here," because I feel like it is only His presence that can transform. So I think another thing for preserving is you being an encouragement to others.
Because we're all in this race, right? And just as we're going about this race, we should be, especially as Christians, that we were made to be salty to one another. And I feel like that's you and me, when we first talked about this whole thing. I mean, we were salty in a different way, in what everyone says salty is, salty.
The sarcasm and
but then, Matthew 5 talks about salt in a different way. If you apply it to relationships or friendships, it's like cheering each other on this race that we're all running. And whether we're stumbling or whatever, like being that person to be like, it's okay, like keep going. And we all need a salty person in our lives, and I think that's you in my life. It's like when I'm feeling like, oh man, like everything is just way too overwhelming, I just can't today. And then you'd remind me of why we are doing this and all. So yeah, we've been called to be salty to each other, as in encouraging and speaking words of encouragement and building each other up, not tearing each other down.
And just making good things last longer.
So I love salt. My whole family loves salt. We just eat salt with everything. And I don't know, I remember my dad didn't eat as much salt, but it's like over the years, because of my mother, who's Gaimasima, his taste buds have like developed and he needs salt. And so I'm the same, and I just feel like, being salty, not just in preserving, because we've talked about preserving, but seasoning and making things taste better. So like it's mango season now, and there's like lots of maokai mata. And you can eat it, and sometimes it's yum, but it's like really sour. But once you put that salt on it, sprinkle that salt on it, it like brings out this sweetness that you didn't think was there. So as, sons and daughters of God, Christians, and this podcast, whatever that we talk about, like I hope that we bring flavor, that we not only that we're able to draw out that flavor by being salty in each other's lives, or whoever's listening, is by being the salt. We're drawing out things from other people that, whether it be talents, whether it be like really good potential, whether it be like, there's like a whole array of things, and that's like kind of telling of a good relationship is like when they bring out that goodness in you and like kind of build you up and make you realize that, oh, my insecurities aren't, they're like worthless. And I can do all these things. And I think it takes salty people to help someone see that in themselves.
And I remember listening to this podcast, and it was like, it just takes one person to see that spark in you, and then you're able to see that spark in yourself. So it's like your potential is there, your hidden talent is there, but it just needs someone to be that salt that encourages you, like that brings out that taste that it's already in you.
Draws it out of you. Because it's not like it wasn't in there. Because it's not like you're putting sugar and you're making them into, putting a sweetness in there. It's already there. It just needs to be drawn out, and that's what salt does.
I think for me, I just think of our words, because the power of our tongue is very powerful. It can destroy someone, but to add salt into it to make it tasty, not the saltiness that we're so used to, which is like sarcasm and like just the tongue and jokes. But seasoning your word, hoping that it builds someone, encourages that person, edify. So for me, like to be salt to earth is to watch my word. I think I was just reading the verse today of James, because we're meant to do James. It was like, be quick to listening, be slow to
was it to anger?
It was slow to speaking, and then
listen more, say less.
Yes.
Okay.
So I think it's just holding back and like watching what you say, making sure it's like biblically salty,
not worldly salty. That's so true. It's true. And I think, like, of course, like a salty life is a more flavorful life, and it's a more, you don't want to be living a boring life. And I think there's a misconception about Christianity. It's like, oh man, it's so boring because you have to give up so much. But then when you think about it, if you're like, your faith is strong and you like, you come to God and you surrender everything, you're putting your life in His hands. And this is like the God of the universe. This is the God who like parted the Red Sea way back when. And He takes us from our like our ugliness and turns it into something beautiful. When you start a relationship with Jesus, like it's an adventure that's about to begin. And you may not know what tomorrow looks like, but then trusting in him, and he just surprises you along the way. And it's like, it's an adventurous life versus the bland, usual.
I think when you were talking, that verse, that verse, it's like taste
and see that the Lord is good.
Yeah. So it's like, and we're like speaking from experience, like, bro, we can be dumb, we can be backsliding and stuff, but bro, like when we come to the presence of God, it's the fulfillment, the goodness, and like just sitting in His presence. Home. Yeah. So it's nothing like being in the presence of God, nothing being in the salt.
The saltiness of His presence.
Yeah. I also, when I eat salt, I think it was the other day, I was like, the food was a little, like, I think at the restaurant that I was at,
was it banana leaf?
Hey, no, they had put too much masima in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, because me, I don't drink, because once I drink, I'm like full, I can't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. But because it was so salty, I had to drink to continue eating because it was too salty. And then I like that with your saltiness, it should make people thirst for God. And so I think being a salt of the earth, it's like containing that saltiness of God, being watered with His fountain of the living water, like, and just being salty because people will see that in you, will see that God in you. Like, it's not pretending because they're gonna see right through it.
Exactly.
But living life and being that person that if someone sees you, they'll see the glory of God, and then make us like, oh, what are you on? Like, what drugs are you on? I was like, presence of God, Machi.
No, that's so true.
I think
so we need to be making people thirsty for God, not being like, I don't want what you got.
Yeah.
Another like use of salt is purifying, right? And like, this just reminds me about like, so when something bad happens to you, trauma. This is like the beginning that we're talking about trauma. We have so much to talk about, but like, if a traumatic experience happens to you. And if someone brings it up and you feel some type of way, like you feel hurt immediately.
Triggered?
Yeah, kind of triggered, like triggering. It's kind of like when you sprinkle salt on something, on an open wound. My eczema, for example. Sometimes I scratch and it's open. And if I were to put salt in it, bro, like it's so mamahi, like it's so like kala. And that not only says that you have an open wound, that it needs healing, it needs fixing, but sometimes the uncomfortable things that we talk about, and we talk about a lot of uncomfortable things. I think that's like also a way of being salt, is like speaking to your friends about the uncomfortable things to bring healing, because salt purifies, right? It purifies wounds. It cleans it, disinfects it. And I think when our words are also salty, it doesn't just mean, like say really nice things that everyone wants to hear. It also means loving them in a way that you say things to people that they need to hear, because it's about, sometimes it's tough love, but sometimes, and when you're hurting, it will hurt. But later on, you look back and you'll be like, man, I don't know what I would do if this person didn't say the things that were hurtful, but I needed to hear in that time.
And I think just hearing someone say something about you and it's offensive, sometimes it's not really on the person saying it. Sometimes it's like you checking yourself and like asking yourself like, oh, why did that hurt me? Why was that offensive? So because if it didn't matter that much, you wouldn't be as hurt.
But the fact that you're hurt,
not that we want to be hurting some people on purpose. I also, my grandma, whenever someone would have like a fuihangata maki when we were little, she would say ge alomai vai tahi, and you know how it goes that salty, and she'll like tului on your wound. So it like takes out the impurity. So I think to be salt of the earth, it's like allowing God to take out the impurity in our life. So I think, be that person that isn't afraid to say things even though it hurts, but also, that David's psalm, it was like to check my heart.
Search my heart, Lord. Yeah.
So it's like, I think the purifying and the cleansing, asking God to take out the impurity within our heart.
Yeah. And that's a dangerous prayer, right? Cause
that is a dangerous prayer.
Yeah, because you're like, you're giving God permission to come in and show you what your red flags and everything like that. And it's not always easy to come face to face with who you actually are when it's someone that you're not really proud of. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Being open to that.
Yeah. I think, and also I know with this podcast, because we're gonna be talking about our issues. We'll try. I think another thing of purifying and cleansing is, we'll try not to be conformed to this world. We're gonna say some things that are gonna be hurtful and it's gonna upset the world, but that is part of being salty.
Yeah, we're going to. Yeah, that's true. It's part of being salty because a lot of things in the Bible are not in line with what everyone else's beliefs are today, and some things are hurtful. But then I think that it's important that, like what you said, not to conform. And I think it's Romans 12, 1 and 2, where it says not to conform to the standards of this world, but be transformed by, and it's really important as just to be able to discern. Because a lot of the times we want to be like these Christians that are okay with everybody, and then you're
be pleasing.
And then you're like, oh yeah, that's all good, which is okay. But I think that we need to be real about it and be real with our relationship with God. If God's like convicting you of certain things, like and it is upsetting. But I think that we should be ready to upset the world, but also from a place of love still. Because once it's not that and it's just judgmental, that's not God.
And we're not saying that we're perfect.
No.
Nope. We're still progressing, and I think us just opening up the space for others to listen. Hope you're encouraged. Hope you be salty and stay salty. And because we're called the Salty Girls, why did we pick?
Why did we pick this?
I remember I was thinking, because we were talking about, because we had all these big plans, like with our partnership together. It's like, what are we going to call it? Like, what are our names? And I think because we want God to be in every little area of what we do, and we want to be led by God in every little decisions that we make, even though sometimes we don't listen. But I think I was thinking of, what about like God's flavor? Because we want God to be
the center. We want him to be the reason.
And then I was like, God flavor, because like salt is like a flavor. And I was like, Anna, salty girl. I was like, yes. So that's what it means for us. Like, that's why we picked Salty Girls, and just that whole Matthew 5:13.
And I think for me, I think purpose is a huge thing. And also like Matthew 5:13 talks about, salt has a certain purpose, and when salt loses its saltiness, it's going to be thrown to the streets and trampled by men. And I don't want to be thrown to the streets. I don't want to be trampled by men.
I don't want to go back. Not that I was there.
We already moved to the suburbs. No. I don't want to die and go to be judged and be like, why didn't you do the things that I told you to do? Or maybe, why did you do half of the things, a quarter of the things? And I feel like this verse is really like convicting. It's like, if you're created to be salt, be salt. If you're created to do this, do that. And don't compromise and don't conform just because everyone else is doing this and that.
And please share with us what it means to you to be called like the salt of the earth.
If we're missing anything, I think we talked a lot. But we love the convos. So let us know what your take is on Matthew 5:13 and how you're being salty.
That is it from us. We hope you enjoy.
Yeah, thank you. First episode down.
Yo, stay salty.
I'm tired. I'm going to sleep.
Bye.
Bye.